Three, two, one. Welcome to the SaaS Pulse Show. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of SaaS Talent. And really unbelievably excited today, everyone. We have a GTM go-to-market leader here on the podcast. Everybody wants to talk about go-to-market right now, and it's the biggest thing on everybody's mind. So let me introduce everybody to Scott Stouffer. He is the founder and CEO of scaleMatters, and scaleMatters is a boutique go-to-market analytics company that does software and services solutions. And it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So what I always love to start with is the superhero backstory. So Scott, in the pregame, Scott told me, I've been doing this forever, Mike, since 1993. He said he worked on 5 different companies to get to this point. So Scott, give everybody a little taste of your background. How did you get here to scaleMatters?
Sure. Well, I guess some relevant context. So I'm trained as an electrical engineer. Also have a MBA, so educational. That's kind of the background. Started my career in product management in the semiconductor industry, and fairly shortly thereafter went into sales.
Mm.
And during that time is when I got exposed to kind of the startup world. This is way back in the day, and some of the semiconductor companies that we were selling for that were startups at the time, LSI Logic, Cypress Semiconductor, Xilinx, et cetera. So I kind of caught the startup bug.
Right.
Think of that as a long time ago, late 80s, early 90s. Started my first business in 1993, which was in the telecom equipment space. And most of my years prior to starting that business were really in product management and marketing. Had some good success. First company we built, it was called Visual Networks, built it to, I don't know, 125 million in annual sales,
Wow.
IPO, Goldman-led IPO. So built a pretty robust company there. I'm now 4 companies later, trying to prove that one wasn't a fluke. Now, actually, we've done some interesting stuff over the ensuing years. And, current company called scaleMatters is really focused around helping growth stage and lower mid-market companies, predominantly tech companies, get much more efficient with their go-to-market investments, right?
Right.
I mean, we've seen a sea change from growth at all costs to efficient growth, and an awful lot of the waste that happens is in the sales and marketing spend and customer success spend. So what we do is we basically help companies get their data, their go-to-market data and analytics into a kind of very inspired state so that it becomes a legitimate tool to help inform them to take better decisions. And, it's basically our company is a productized approach to what we did put in place at our prior business, where we were able to, in about a year's time, reduce our cost of acquisition by 70%,
Wow.
reduce our sales cycle by 45%.
Nice. So in terms of your company, just what sets it apart, right? In terms of your differentiation in the market, so you work with these tech companies. So really, what are the things that really set you apart from other players in the space, other consultants, other, people that are playing in the same space as you?
Sure. So again, so if you think of us as a go-to-market analytics company, and we deliver, we have a proprietary software platform and a data visualization, go-to-market data visualization platform, but we also deliver this stuff as services, so fractional analysts or analyst as a service type thing.
Mhm.
I'd say that's a niche within the broader RevOps services market.
Got it.
And to understand what sets us apart, it's probably helpful to kind of oversimplify the concept of RevOps as providing the functional equivalent of IT as well as the functional equivalent of FP&A, financial planning and analysis.
Mhm.
But both are focused around the unique needs of go-to-market functions. Getting go-to-market analytics right requires deep skills on both kind of the IT pillar as well as the FP&A pillar
Mhm.
of RevOps. And scaleMatters is one of, if not the only RevOps service provider that has expertise across both of these functional pillars.
Mhm.
Most providers, when you think about RevOps providers, they're really focused on the IT aspects, right? Implementing, administering Salesforce, HubSpot, all the various sales tech and MarTech
Mhm.
tech stacks that are there to support sales, marketing, and CS.
Right.
So our first differentiator is really kind of the unique blend of technical expertise between the IT and the FP&A side.
Mm.
Secondly, um, so data analytics is really hard, right? It requires a data strategy to make sure you're actually measuring the right stuff. It
Right.
requires processes to ensure there's a good data hygiene, or there is good data hygiene. And finally, it requires design, right? You need to design the presentation of data so that it's actionable. Actionable. What do I mean by that? Um, People have tons of reports, tons of dashboards, but most companies complain that nothing's very actionable, right? Answers don't just jump off the page. So you have to design the presentation of data so that it's really easy to curate or draw conclusions and insights from that
Mhm.
data, which is what compels people to take one action over another, right? And we've developed a framework to do this. We call it Data Drives Action Framework,
Okay.
and it's proven to be very effective at kind of wrangling the otherwise daunting task of trying to get one's go-to-market data and analytics into a good place. So that's second thing that sets us apart is the framework. And then thirdly is we've actually developed a powerful yet user-friendly full funnel analytics software platform.
Mhm.
And that helps our customers as well as our internal analysts get to real business insights much faster
Right.
than they otherwise could using traditional analytics tools and methods. So it's really blend of expertise, the framework we use to get this stuff right, and then the software we use to accelerate the speed of analysis that sets us apart in the marketplace.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, in terms, we talked earlier in the pregame about your ICP, right? So tell everybody. So what I always love is when I get an email or a message from somebody, hey, Mike, somebody reached out to me because of your podcast here. So tell everybody, what is your ICP? Who is your ICP
Yeah,
and what does that typically look like?
sure. So our ICP, if you think about what we do is we provide great data analytics, right? To go to market analytics. So for starters, you have to have enough going on that you could have some data.
Right.
So that by definition forces us probably to kind of maybe late stage Series A, early
Mm-hmm.
Series B type companies. I
Yeah.
would say at the low end, ideally we're 5 to 10 million in annual revenue as a customer, and probably 10 salespeople or 10 combined salespeople and SDRs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the high end, a few 100 million, 3 or 400 million in annual revenue, maybe 100 salespeople type thing.
Right.
Um, and you know, if they're smaller companies, then they would typically be have velocity models, meaning they are selling whatever they sell
Mm-hmm.
to SMB or mid market, right? So they're trying to book, I don't know, 10 new customers a month or something like that. Again,
Right.
we're looking at things that are proxies for there will be data.
Right.
Data. If you're a $5 million company and you're trying to grow by adding one more $1 million customer a year, there's probably not a lot of motions and stuff to measure.
Mm-hmm.
So on the low end, we tend to be high velocity. Our customers tend to be high velocity models. On the larger end, many of them, I mean, they sell to broad swaths of the market. They have enterprise focused stuff, they have mid market focused stuff, et cetera. I would say subscription businesses or recurring businesses tend to be good for us. And why? Because those are the businesses where go-to-market efficiency is so important, right?
Right.
Because you're basically spending all the money to acquire these customers up front, and you're sort of deferring the revenue stream over
Right.
a number of years. So it's important to get that upfront cost down. So whether it's a
Mm.
pure SaaS business, a tech-enabled service, we have a lot of professional services, marketing agencies, right, that have recurring business from their customers. That kind of model would typically be a good fit for us as well.
Nice. So in terms of just challenges, you told me you've been at this now with this particular company for 5 years. So what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had, and how did you overcome them?
Well, sure. I could probably give you more about the challenges than how we've overcome them. But I would say the first challenge is being a hybrid software and services companies
Mm,
and not doing either at enough scale to be effective.
right.
And there's a reason we're a hybrid. I'll give you a little back story here. So we started as a software company, built this awesome and full funnel analytics platform, and decided we were going to go after kind of early stage companies, Series A, Series B companies, because these guys tend to waste an awful lot of this very expensive capital on sales and marketing stuff that isn't productive for them.
Sure.
Uh, um, so we build the software, we go out to market, and the first thing we realized is most of these companies had never actually set up their
Mm,
tech stacks
mhm.
in an appropriate way to produce the necessary data or measurements that they need to have.
Right.
So we sort of backed into becoming a RevOps services provider
Mm,
because these companies first needed to get their environments to a level that they could actually produce data and
right.
produce high integrity data.
Yeah.
So that's how we ended up being both a services and software company. But we have found it very useful to be that way because it helps us be very close to the customer, right?
Mhm.
But it's hard. We're VC backed company, and it's hard to build at scale when you have two different focuses that
Sure.
somewhat take away from each other. So, our answer for that, for overcoming that, is to effectively have built this effective framework, this data drives action framework for the services,
Mm,
and then either build partners, the partner ecosystem to do the services aspect,
mhm.
or get to scale quickly on the services side through M&A. And so we're actually working both of those paths. We are actively building a series of other RevOps services providers who are predominantly focused on the technology management part of RevOps
Mhm.
to be able to deliver the services that we need for our customers. But we are also simultaneously working with a financial sponsor to actually go out and buy some additional services companies so we can get the services part of our business at scale. So that's one challenge and how we're uh, trying to address it. Any questions on that before I go to maybe a second challenge?
No, that makes it super clear. I mean, a lot of the companies that have been on this show are pure software. I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's hard when I completely understand. It's hard when you're doing both. I mean, my question is, do you have the opportunity to lead with the software and then do an implementation phase, or is it sometimes you have to do an implement? It sounds like you maybe have to get people set up first, then sell them the software. So I guess it sounds like it's a challenge because it's like, what do we lead with here?
Yeah,
Right?
we lead, and we've tried both, right? I mean, this is what startups do. They constantly experimenting, but I would say we're leading with the end result, which is giving customers much better insight into how their
Right.
go-to-market
They
engine
want the
is
end
working.
goal. At the end of the day,
They just want better knowledge of how their stuff's working, where stuff isn't working, why isn't it, and what should they do about it.
right.
And so that's really what we focus on. The bulk of the early work tends to be services
Hmm.
because they're not going to be able to get the insights they need regardless of whether they use our analytics platform or use Tableau or something else, right?
Right.
They aren't going to get the insights they need unless they get their infrastructure set up properly and their
Got it.
processes proper
I
so
get
that it actually produces the right data. So that we lead with the outcome, but our initial work is always on the services side.
it. Mm. Yeah, and that's
Um,
tough. I can understand why that'd be tough to scale rapidly.
yeah. It does make it a scalability issue. On the other hand, versus compared to so many pure software companies, our churn is de minimis,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah.
Because we're the users of our software in many
Right.
cases on behalf of the customer.
Sure.
So we've got 100% logo retention year over year and that kind of stuff. So
Nice.
it doesn't it certainly doesn't look like a traditional services business from that perspective. The second challenge, which is not unique to us, because of who we focus on, kind of VC and PE backed companies, the VC backed portion of our ICP was very challenged kind of from 2022 through 2023, right?
Oh
With
yeah.
with the massive shift from growth at all costs to efficient growth.
Yep.
And essentially they just started cutting costs, right? On a
Sure.
wholesale basis, only spending on things that have kind of near immediate ROI.
Hmm.
The problem with data and analytics is that it actually takes a while
Right.
to get the infrastructure right. And then the value of the insights increases over time as there becomes more and more data. So while few doubt the kind of the immense ROI of better go-to-market analytics in the mid to long term, a lot of these folks were really not in a position to even think about anything beyond immediate survival. So what we basically did over the last 18 months is, like so many companies, is sort of shifted more upmarket. I would say today, more of our new customers, 80% or more, are going to be PE backed companies
Mm.
rather than VC backed companies.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, no, I completely get it. I mean, what my gut is saying to me is if you're a lot of times leading with services, it's like you want to get a customer in the door. From my with my sales hat on, I'm thinking to myself, hopefully you have like an entry level, kind of a mid tier and like like a 5K, 15K, 25K thing that you can sell, that you could sell to the customer and get in the door. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And, we don't have to talk about that. That's probably a whole nother podcast. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking in my mind of ideas. But in terms of just kind of, it's been a great podcast. I mean, the
Thanks.
couple more questions, two more
Sure.
questions. In terms of talent and people, what does that look like? So, I mean, very interesting because you said you started as a software company. I'm sure you started hiring a lot of people. Then you're pivoting to, oh gosh, we're like a services software company. So, how is people? How is talent? How has that been the last few years for you? I'm sure there's been challenges, right? So, tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're still kind of early stage, but just generically, since this is my fifth one of these things, at the earliest stage, when you start a company, you largely have to rely on people who already know you and trust you,
Right.
like former colleagues and or family, right? Because in many cases, you're asking people to take a pay cut and come try this thing that's completely unproven, et cetera. So it's very rare that you can go recruit people at the earliest stages of the company that you don't already know.
Right.
Um, Next phase, is to rely on networks, of the people that are in your company or people that kind of trying to get from the four or five founders to the next 10 people. You're probably still relying heavily on networks. But I think
Right.
once you get to 15, 20 people, those networks, depending on where you are, may often sort of run dry,
It's hard.
and that's when you need to institutionalize recruiting to some extent. And I would say for early stage companies, um, I mean, unless you've raised a lot of money and you're going to add like 30 people over the next year, I don't think it makes sense to try to hire your own internal recruiter for that because you have to have enough capacity that you're trying to fill
Hmm.
to keep a recruiter 100% busy. And
Sure.
so in my view, you need to find a provider like you guys, as talent, or any kind of outsourced recruiting firm that specializes in the world that's relevant to you, right?
Right.
And it's probably not as bad as therapists, but you might have to go through a couple till you find one that's a great fit.
Yeah.
But when you do, I mean, that relationship is gold, right? For your current company, and then about it for the next company you might start. And then you get to a certain point, I don't know, 50, 70 people, and it might start to justify in-house resource, particularly because you're going to have other HR stuff. It's not just a recruiting issue then, right? You start to deal with a bunch of compliance and benefits and all this other stuff.
Sure. Sure. No, that was a great answer. I got to tell you, that was a great answer just from the standpoint of just me positioning my company the right way. So thank you so much. But
Sure.
Scott, it's been an awesome podcast. So everybody should reach out to Scott Stouffer from Scale Matters. Again, GTM focused, more upstream, so he's working with later stage A round and on up, right? Companies that really care about GTM and want analytics done right. So, Scott, it was awesome having you on the show. Stick around for a few minutes. We'll debrief, but looking forward to following your journey.
Awesome, Michael. Thanks for having me.